As we mentioned toward the end of our time yesterday, Jesus' body is placed in a nearby tomb. This happens because Joseph of Arimathea, a disciple of Jesus, approaches Pilate and asks for Jesus' body. John tells us Joseph isn't alone. Nicodemus also, who earlier had come to Jesus by night, came bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 75 pounds in weight. So they took the body of Jesus and bound it in linen cloths with the spices, as is the burial custom of the Jews. There's not much time for them to accomplish this act. With Jesus dying on the cross at 3 p.m, there are only 3 hours before the start of the Sabbath, as the Jewish day began at 6 p.m. We know Nicodemus is a Pharisee, and Luke tells us that Joseph is a member of the Sanhedrin, or the council. It is highly important to both men that Jesus' body be respectfully prepared for burial, but it is equally important that they maintain the observance of the Sabbath and avoid any type of work. Preparing a body for burial is considered work. Now, in the place where he was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden, a new tomb in which no one had yet been laid. In modern-day Jerusalem, there are 2 places considered to be the possible resting place of Christ. One, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, is the traditional site, constructed in 335 AD. The other, the Garden Tomb, is considered the historical site, more closely aligning with the description in the Gospels of Golgotha and the tomb. Here you can see a photo of this tomb. It was found in the mid-1800s near an ancient wine press and a cistern, which proved that the area had been a garden at some point. The tomb contains 2 chambers, one with benches where bodies would have been laid. In the chamber with benches, you can see markings inscribed toward the top of the wall. These symbols date back to the 5th or 6th century and include letters surrounding a cross. The upper letters translate to Jesus Christ, or Jesus the Messiah, and the lower symbols are the Greek letters Alpha and Omega. This is in reference to the words of Christ we find in Revelation 22. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Although no one can say with any certainty where Jesus' tomb was located, it may have looked something like this. Back in our biblical account, the chief priests and Pharisees begin to see a potential issue. They gather before Pilate and say, "Sir, remember how that impostor said while he was still alive, 'After 3 days I will rise.' Therefore, order the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day, lest his disciples go and steal him away and tell the people he has risen from the dead. And the last fraud will be worse than the first." They remember his teachings and that he foretold his resurrection after 3 days. If the body disappears and the public begins to hear about a possible resurrection, it will spell disaster for the priests and the Pharisees. Notice their worry isn't that Jesus' resurrection will prove they were wrong, but his resurrection will be a fraudulent scandal worse than the signs and teachings Jesus had done while he was still alive. They had ignored his teachings, ignored his signs, but they can't ignore the fact that the miracle worker had foretold another miracle scheduled to occur in just a few hours. Pilate agrees to send a guard of soldiers to guard the tomb, but the anticipated disappearance of Jesus' body turns out to be the least of their worries. As morning breaks the next day, Jesus' words about his resurrection become reality as the stone covering the tomb rolls away.